Global Times, 3 June 2023, people-to-people contacts between China and Japan are improving, but relations are still precarious. Beijing diplomat. China has been defaming Japan as a nation while still attempting to appear business-friendly. China is in serious trouble as a result of this double face. People-to-people exchanges between the two nations have resumed in the post-pandemic era, marking the 45th anniversary of the signing of the China-Japan Treaty of Peace and Friendship. However, Tokyo is growing more aggressive and taking a confrontational approach in countering Beijing, pushing their relations to a dangerous crossroad. Huang Xingyuan, China's representative director of the Japan-China Friendship Center, told the Global Times. For China's interests and not those of the world at large to be indeed served, Huang expressed his hope that Japan would have wise and far-sighted politicians rather than power brokers who were more concerned with their interests and personal gain. Huang pointed out that some Japanese politicians have been pushing the twin narratives of a Taiwan emergency is a Japanese emergency and the China threat idea, which call for military expansion and distort the nation's diplomacy toward China. The Chinese ambassador emphasized that whether the two nations can break the ice relies on the Japanese administration's future policy, given that numerous unresolved problems between China and Japan have affected bilateral cooperation. First and foremost, Tokyo should work to resolve issues with Beijing amicably, bow to Chinese demands, uphold the China-Japan Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and uphold the concept of not meddling in one another's internal affairs. For instance, because Taiwan is a subject of internal Chinese concern, China-Japan relations will become more stable and hopeful if Japan does not encourage the hegemonic power to agitate or repress China on related essential matters. Second, Japan should not adopt the US's characterization of China as the biggest strategic challenge and threat, as doing so is damaging to Japan's security, economic, and future development goals, as well as to relations between China and Japan, as well as to its geopolitics and role in Asia. Huang stated his concern that an invisible hand behind the scenes is affecting the trajectory of China-Japan relations, that is, U.S. policy has also impacted these connections. He claimed that some lawmakers in Japan with poor judgment have consistently viewed the U.S.'s policies toward China as Japan's stance. Additionally, Huang pointed out that certain Japanese mainstream media outlets have turned into attack dogs against China while refusing to report bilateral relations and the absence of positive news from China. Huang claimed that several recent actions against China appeared to have been taken when Washington realized Beijing was double-dealing while simultaneously exposing Tokyo's initiative. Before, there was economic growth but political strife between the two countries. Political and economic issues are now being affected, which is extremely dangerous for China and calls for immediate action to restore balance. According to Huang, China should have hope in the more frequent exchanges and communications between the two nations to reverse the unfavorable trend in Sino-Japanese relations. He said establishing direct hotlines between the Chinese and Japanese defense ministers for maritime and air liaison mechanisms and people-to-people exchanges has begun returning to normal in a post-COVID world. This is a good signal for the two countries to improve their friendship. Political conversations have included the visit to China by Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi in early April. Huang emphasized that in such situations, people-to-people diplomacy has lost some importance. According to Huang, at least 150 events were centered on people-to-people exchanges organized through the Japan-China Friendship Center in China last year, the 50th anniversary of the normalization of China-Japan relations. As more and more visionary people believe it is time not to restore friendly exchanges between the people and inject greater vitality into China-Japan relations, this warm atmosphere through open events remains crucial, and the friendship between China and Japan has become non-existent in the people-to-people sphere. While relations between China and Japan have had mixed results, Japan is struggling to mend its ties with South Korea, another neighbor, at the true behest of the US. Huang thinks that Tokyo and Seoul's relations are warming up naturally because Seoul is pleading for goodwill from the other side in a self-inflicted manner, which indicates that the outcomes will be fantastic but short-lived. According to Huang, the most excellent way to resolve disputes between Beijing and Tokyo or Seoul and Tokyo will be if Japan can honestly examine its past and partially atone for the terrible and painful histories of the nations it persecuted, including China and South Korea. But now, he observed, it is precisely the contrary. The enemy is China. Tokyo continues to dodge issues, and the Yoon administration's strategy of allying with Tokyo and being friendly with it in the face of other nations is exceptional. The US created this partnership because it secretly wanted the stability in the region to last. The Chinese envoy also addressed a significant issue that South Korea, China raised, and other stakeholders, in addition to the Japanese public. Tokyo's arbitrary choice to discharge radioactively contaminated effluent from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into the sea. On May 26, a group of South Korean government experts wrapped up their contentious visit to the Fukushima Daiichi plant to assess Tokyo's strategy. This inspection confirms South Korea's earlier public criticism that this was a 3-no inspection, with no direct sampling, no list of the inspection team members being made public, and no media oversight. Huang claimed that despite unfounded objections and worries from China, Russia, South Korea, South Pacific Island countries, and other stakeholders, Tokyo had acted appropriately in its attempt to dispose of radioactive effluent. Huang emphasized that the US must have approved Tokyo's dump choice. This led to the logical conclusion that the two parties have traded political interests and disregarded the fundamental idea of safeguarding the public's health and way of life. Huang argued that before deciding how to handle the wastewater, Tokyo should collaborate with other stakeholders and international organizations that China does not respect to conduct a thorough and transparent analysis of the nuclear contaminated wastewater. The Chinese diplomat continued, "I hope that Japan will have wise and far-sighted politicians rather than self-centered policymakers who are more concerned with their own country's gains so that Japan's national interests, the interests of its people, as well as those of the region and the larger world, can be indeed served."